Hey guys, this is Shaiko and welcome to my second video. In today's episode, I would like to talk about depression and how it affects our relationship. Also, how to help such a person, like regardless whether it's a friend or your loved one, doesn't matter. I would like to give you some hints on how to handle the situation. I already mentioned several points in my previous video, but in this one I would like to specifically focus on depression. Okay, I know how it affects my relations, but what even is this? Who the hell suffers from it anyway? Just don't be sad. Why can't they just be normal? In this video, I would like to help you understand people with depression and what they're actually going through. Okay, let's start with what even is depression, aka the big sad, and why it actually differs from you being bummed out about not getting lucky with this chick at the party. I mean, chill, she probably wasn't that hot and you were drunk, so it is an actual illness based on biochemical and neurostructural causes. Those include changes in the anatomy of the brain, genetical predisposition, biochemical factors that lead to the lack of neuroadrenaline and serotonin, and mostly a triggering factor like a traumatic experience, for example. Also, a generally overwhelming life situation can be a triggering factor and a risk factor. Worth mentioning is also women suffer from depression almost twice as often as men. Oh, so that means men are the superior gender, right? Nah, not really, like we still rock the suicide statistics. There's also a variety of health conditions that could potentially trigger depression, such as dementia, anemia, hyperthyroidosis. Oh, like even an excessive alcohol abuse could trigger it as well. Okay, cool. All great, but like, how do I recognize that someone has depression? Like, how do I know? To diagnose and to stage depression, we use quite a simple system. I mean, like, assuming anything in medicine is ever simple, but this one's not that bad. Although, like, I'm not gonna tell you this in detail, it doesn't really make sense. We basically have three cardinal symptoms. The first one is gloomy mood, the second one is loss of interest, and the third one is lack of drive or motivation. I basically described an edgy zoomer on the internet who puts extremely edgy memes. All of them might sound the same to you, but frankly, like, this is quite important to differentiate between the three of them. And next we have a whole variety of secondary symptoms: loss of concentration, insomnia, reduced or actually like augmented appetite, the feeling of worthlessness, feeling of aimlessness, guilt, reduced self-esteem, like negative perspectives on the future, or actually suicidal thoughts. Like, I'm gonna talk about suicide a bit later though. Okay, I literally just spit out all the possible symptoms, but like, would be great if you remembered three of them, honestly. To actually count the symptoms as depression, you first need them to persist for at least 2 weeks. You have to exclude that there is no maniac episodes in between. That means like the person doesn't go from super low to super agitated. And third, you have to exclude the person being under the influence of psychotrope substances. And you also have to exclude the issue being like some other mental illness. In severe cases, it might also go hand in hand with the somatic syndrome. A couple of symptoms are joylessness, reduced sex drive, waking up early, also a very gloomy mood in the morning, indifference, or like a very severe loss of weight. Cool, like enough with the listing shit right now. How do I recognize a depressed person? Easy, bro! Ask them and they're gonna tell ya. That doesn't really happen like that. So even if they know, I mean, even, which they probably don't if it's an early stadium, so they're not gonna directly mention you all the symptoms. You kind of have to play the psychiatrist with them. Also, very often out of shame or like the guilt feeling of being a burden to everyone else, they are not gonna be so willing to tell you this straight away. Very often they are not gonna change dramatically from day one to day two if you don't spend the time with them. Like, you might not even notice them changing. Because, like, yeah, obviously we shouldn't be too intrusive and we should respect someone's private space. Like, if they just don't want to meet up, like, we shouldn't push them, right? But still, there's a couple of yellow flags that you might want to watch. First one that I notice with like depressed friends It's like they're either always, I mean always on social media or actually never. There is like no moderate in between. They very often seem uninterested and like constantly tired. They wouldn't go out as often as they used to. They would, for example, cancel last minute on you with a very flaky excuse, such as, I don't know, like the dog of my best friend just died and I really need to be there for her. And like, I'm so sorry, but this is so important to her and I wish I could. I mean, you probably have heard this shit before. They would break up hobbies or quit their job like out of nowhere. Or they would react inadequately to the severity of the situation. So, like, get really angry for seemingly no reason. Like, compare it to when your room was messy and your mom went in and she would go bonkers about that. What I also notice is self-deprecation humor or saying lines along, "Yeah, I'm never gonna make it anyway," like I'm too bad for it anyway. So what's the point? They would say they're constantly busy, even though you know exactly they aren't. Now that I think of it, the majority of my Tinder dates must have been really depressed then. They wouldn't reach out first. Shit, also another one that fits most of my Tinder dates. This one is more common among people slightly older than me, but still like neglected hygiene and looks. It's a bit easier to detect depression in a relationship though. Your second half wouldn't go into in-depth topics with you, so like they would start distancing themselves. Also, what's quite common is like they wouldn't be as interested in sex as they used to be, assumed they ever were. Once again, they would also start fights over seemingly nothing. Often you would see the behavior of them trying to occupy themselves with something, as in finding a new hobby and then like breaking it up super quickly. What's also quite typical is depressed people who literally can't get out of bed, and I mean it. They would lie around after waking up for 2, 3 hours and literally not doing shit, just staring at the ceiling. So like my advice is be sensitive about the behavioral changes of your second half. Okay, cool, yo. So like it's easier to detect it once it's your loved one and you live with them, but it's way, way, way harder to keep up with this shit. I mean, especially if you still have noticed what's up and like that partner simply leaves you clueless. That can be fucking frustrating. Okay, so like you have a slight suspicion that someone might be depressed, but like how do you even approach the topic right now? Okay, advice number one is like don't ever try to be imperative about finding out or suspecting it. Like approach the topic as if you asked them, like, just suggest it kind of like. I mean, except you actually have the authority to do it, as in like you are a psychiatrist or something, but like since you watched this video, I assume you aren't. For example, Google the symptoms with them or show them this video and ask them if they relate. Okay, fine, but what if they are in such a deep denial that they kind of realize, but they just don't want to acknowledge it? Fact is, you aren't a savior, so like you can't force them to be happy. You can only show them the way and show that you are there for them, that in case they have any questions or they need support, they can always turn to you. But they have to acknowledge it first themselves. And trust me, if it gets really bad for them, they will start Googling it, they will start researching it, because at some point they will crack and will actively search help. Okay, cool. So, like, now we're at the point where they realize that they are depressed and they need help. So, that's solved, right? Like, from now on, they're actually gonna start working on their mental health and start improving, right? Yeah, I wish. So the problem about hopeless and helpless people is like they can't even find the courage or motivation to like often get out of bed and like let alone be proactive about themselves. Probably they tried improving before it hit hard. But according to the theory of Seligman, once you repeatedly notice that the effort you put in something to like make it work doesn't work. It makes you helpless. It basically makes you give up on trying. So like once they repeatedly tried and tried and tried all over again, it just didn't work. So at some point they stopped trying. And depressed people very often think that they alone are responsible for the situation, and like they alone can only handle it, as in like everything is their fault. They also usually think that there is literally no way out, as in like this is how it is right now and it's never gonna change. So yeah, obviously like the process of improvement is up to them, but not exclusively up to them. As in, you can definitely help, you can be there for them. The first and most important part about this, like obviously only if you can afford it or like your insurance covers it, but finding a therapist and pursuing the therapy. Your depressed boyfriend, wife, friend, whoever it is, will very likely try to break up the therapy during it. So like it's up to you to actually keep them focused on it and try to convince them not to quit prematurely. Like try to be proactive. Like even if they don't suggest a visit and like don't reach out first, you be the one to actually do it. Like you try to take them out from home and like do something with them. Give them an aim or like a hobby, and or if they've had a hobby before, like try to keep them occupied with it, or if possible like do it with them. I don't know, like if they play squash, like you play squash with them, stuff like that. Important part about this is help them not quit it, because they will quit a lot, and I'm telling you, like they will get discouraged very easily about anything. And to prevent them being discouraged, set a realistic goal, as in if they barely ever worked out, then like it's very unlikely they're gonna run half a marathon, right? So I don't know, like first set a goal to like run 2 kilometers, whatever. Be open about emotions, like both their and yours. And like once they actually find the courage and the will to open up, just shut the fuck up and listen to them. Like literally, just be there. Like ask if you can help, if there's anything that you can do for them. Like ask open questions about like how they feel. Like for example, um, yeah, could you tell me something about this? Or like, could you tell me how you feel? Stuff like that. And if they don't want to, cool, 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 cool. Remind them that they matter and like that there is hope, even if you don't see it that way. Okay, keep calm and understanding during their anger outbreaks. And this might be actually quite hard, but try, at least try. Okay, basically be a walking mat for them, right? Okay, fine, not exactly what I meant, but just keep calm, like easy. This actually leads me to an important point, which is prioritize yourself and your mental health. Because, like, if you burn out, they won't have any support in you. Like, you will just start being unavailable for them. So, not really a help either, is it? Set boundaries, as in, like, hey, I can be there from this and this time, whatever, so that you also have like time for yourself and not persistently for them. Listen to their concerns, like don't be condescending, just be there, listen, act interested even if you aren't interested, but this is important. But like I don't know, nod or do something along, uh-huh, yeah, mm, that's horrible, stuff like that. You know, like for some of you this might not be much of a difference from how your relationship was before, but whatever. Or like how you always talk to your parents. A good point is also like offering your help with daily tasks, as in, hey yo mate, let me know if you need any help pimping that ride you got in your garage, right? Cause like I ain't got nothing better to do this evening anyway. Might as well just help ya. Fine, so like let's list a couple of no's. Okay, so like the first one and probably the hardest, also like most important one, I guess, especially if you're in a relationship, is don't take things personally. As in, the person is literally in their lowest of lows and they really didn't choose to be there. They really didn't choose to feel so shit. So for example, if they don't want to have sex anymore, like I do realize this is really hard to not take it personally, but like you really have to realize it's mostly like nothing against you. Don't be condescending and like don't give condescending advice. Literally just suggest, be like, hey, so like I heard this and this helps. If you want, like you can Google, but like it's literally just up to them to research it and like to find out. Like just don't give them direct advice as in, oh yeah, you should do this and this. And like please, for fuck's sake, don't deny someone's depression. Like avoid phrases like just be happy, bruh. Chill, it's nothing major. Just don't do such a drama, bruh. Don't ridicule their achievements. Like for you, it might appear irrelevant, not important, like not even worth mentioning. But for them, it can be fucking life changing. Like they finally achieved something. They finally did something, even if it's small, but like this is this tiny success that kind of keeps them alive. So and imagine there is someone who would come and be like, haha, that's so shit, even though they actually put some meaning and some work in it. Don't be that person. Okay, and now the elephant in the room, which is like, what about suicide? There is a common myth that you shouldn't even talk about suicide, like in fear of triggering it, as in, okay, so the person didn't think of it before, but you kind of brought them to the idea. So now you're guilty of them thinking of suicide. Actually, this doesn't work like this, and your opinion, believe it or not, but isn't that important. Like, if they thought of suicide or if they were about to think about suicide, they definitely will. Like, with you or without you, sooner or later. If you have any suspicion about this, directly ask them. Approach the topic asking following questions. For example, do you feel like recently feel like you needed a break from all of this? Or do you feel it would be better if you didn't exist at all? Or do you wish you were dead? Or do you actually plan on hurting yourself? Do you have like any specific plan on how to do it? Like, did you buy the necessary tools to do that? Or like, worst case scenario, have you actually tried it? As you might have noticed, like I graded those questions from least to most severe. So the more confirming answers you actually get, the worse it is. So like the worst stadium possible is actually if the person already tried it, because like there's a high possibility that they will try it again. Sometimes it can be quite hard to recognize a person who is suicidal, but there's a couple of red flags. For example, if they talk a lot about death recently, or they gave you an extremely emotional goodbye. Or, for example, they recklessly approach their health. For example, they would use way more drugs than usually, or they would drink way more than usually, or participate in like very dangerous activities, sports, whatever that could like seriously harm them. They would very unexpectedly get rid of all their belongings, or all of a sudden they seem super calm. Like before they would be an emotional wreck, and all of a sudden they seem at least quite calm. This is a very bad sign, because this basically could mean that they just made the decision to end their lives and they're kind of happy about the end. So this is an absolute red flag. This one is a bit harder to spot, but for example, if they search for dangerous objects as weapons, ropes, or sleep medication. All in all, depression is a very challenging experience for all the participating, and like it can seriously fuck up your relationship. I hope I gave you some insight on the topic and like how to actually approach it, how to help a person struggling with it, and like how to basically not fuck up the relations between you guys. If you actually enjoyed the video, I would be extremely happy about any kind of feedback, about likes, comments, whatever it is that you guys want to leave behind. And if you're interested in those topics, like subscribe me, I'm definitely planning on posting more. See you around.